All right, I'm going to call the Swarthmore Borough Council legislative session of Monday, August 20th, 2018 to order. Actually, this is kind of a combined working and legislative session for the month of August. Doing a quick roll call here, I can see that Betsy Larson and Rush Mucky are absent and excused. Everyone else is here and accounted for. At this point, I'm going to call for public comment. If there's anyone attending the meeting this evening that would care to address council, please come up to the podium if you would. State your name and address, and we're happy to hear what you've got to say.
Just me. Is this working okay? Okay, Neil O'Brien, I live at 617 Fairview. I wanted to comment on I believe it's on the docket tonight, the adoption of the lateral sewer ordinance. Or am I correct in that?
For discussion, sure.
For discussion, okay. I had a couple of questions and a comment. The first question I had in reading over the ordinance, Section 6 and Section 6C and Section 6D. Section 6C mentions if there's any crack in the pipe would need to be replaced or repaired. Section 6D mentions that if there is 25% or more blockage by tree roots in the pipe, then that blockage must be cleared. I'm not a plumber, I'm not a tree expert, but my understanding is tree roots do not grow through pipes. They only grow through cracks in pipes. So it seems to me that if there's a blockage in the pipe by tree roots, there had to be a crack there for the tree roots to infiltrate through. So the two sections seem to be going against each other. Section 6C says if there's a crack, it fails. Section 6D says if there are tree roots, as long as it's less than 25%, it passes. So I'm a little confused as to how that would apply when somebody sees roots in there. So are roots okay? The crack, because the roots have filled the crack? I don't know if that needs to be clarified in the final ordinance or not. The other question I had, the ordinance, is this something that the sewer authority wants passed as is, or is it up to each municipality to do what they feel is appropriate?
The municipalities do have some leeway in doing what they feel is appropriate, but I think the overall goal to reduce infiltration of water or exfiltration of sewage is the main thing.
Yeah, obviously we all know the pitfall in this, in that a house may not be sold for 40 years, and they could be, water could be infiltrating the system over a 40-year period of time from cracks in the pipe, downspouts improperly connected, sump pumps improperly connected, and yet that situation won't be resolved until the house is sold, which could be 40 years down the line. I don't know what the perfect solution is, but obviously I don't know that gets to the root of the problem, waiting for decades to have a house that is creating this situation taken care of. I don't have a solution to that, other than a cyclical ongoing inspection, which I know would be, of course, very, very expensive. The last comment I'd like to make is, obviously at the time of selling a house is probably the worst time that a homeowner wants to be faced with something like this. Selling a house is stressful enough. Financially, it could be a burden. I know this could cost $10,000, $12,000 potentially, depending on what the problem is and the layout of the property. Sidewalks torn up, driveways torn up. As well as, I don't know enough about real estate law to say if it would violate a agreement of sale where an agreement of sale was made that says if there's more than, let's say, $2,500 worth of things wrong with the house, the buyer can back out. if this need to repair the sewer line creates that type of situation where it's $5,000 to fix the sewer line, the buyer can now say it's over the limit, I've changed my mind, I don't want to purchase the house. And I don't think it's a real good time. Being all that as it may, I don't have a solution for it, but I do know that there are counties and municipalities throughout the country who have put insurance programs in, where there are commercial insurance companies that will come in and can insure all the lateral sewer lines in the municipality, and the borough or the county, depending on where it is in the country, add an appropriate insurance premium to the real estate tax bill. I don't know what that would cost because, number one, I don't know how many single-family dwellings exist within the borough. I don't know how many single-family dwellings within the borough are sold on average each year. So I don't know what the percentage is. I don't know actuarially what the number of houses that actuarially would have a problem, if it's 10%, is it 20%, is it 30%? So I don't know what the premium would be, but from my research on the internet, the premiums seem to be pretty reasonable, down around $25 to $28 per month for a municipality. Now, maybe Swarthmore as a borough wouldn't want to take on the burden of that type of program, collecting the taxes, having an insurer, but maybe it's something, since this is a county-wide problem supposedly, maybe the county could be encouraged by the municipalities to look into a county-wide insurance program that could be added to the county real estate tax bill. I'd rather spend a few $100s a year than be hit with a $10,000 or $12,000 bill when I'm selling the house. So it's just maybe some food for thought. Okay.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your thoughts. Anyone else care to address council at this time? Yes, sir. And again, hi, but state your name and your address and speak into the microphone, please.
Sure.
I think you can raise it up.
Yeah. Last one I did is setting up Holmes Pro. Thank you, appreciate it. Before I just Jane, you might, I got 4 copies here, that's more for your record. John Lubecker, 116 Yale Avenue. I think all of us know each other. We met before, talked about traffic calming on Yale, and just want to address a couple things real quickly. So before we start, Jane and the borough engineers and I and maybe a few other residents are meeting in front of our house tomorrow to discuss the design of the bumps, which is great. And ideally, it would be nice to have addressed council after that, but seeing how the time has come past and we might not be having any input, I wouldn't want to address this tonight. So I'll be somewhat brief here. So on August 4th, my car was legally parked in front of my house at 116 Yale Avenue. I live 2 houses down from Dickinson, going towards Swarthmore. So the car's traveling east, my car's parked on the side. We always park pretty much on the grass the whole time there just to avoid getting hit. I don't think anybody's ever really been hit, but my car was struck, it was totaled. The driver who hit my car, I was out trimming my hedges about 10 feet away. My car was pushed about 10 to 15 feet into the telephone pole, as you see in the picture there. I helped the driver out of the car. He was a little banged up a little bit. His airbags went off. I helped him to the side of the road, called 911. Morton came quickly, and Sergeant stuff like that. Swarthmore came. Fire ambulance came, tow trucks came. After the chaos settled, I realized the extent of the damage that was done to my car. Trunk completely ruined. The impact of the front was obviously significantly damaged, you see in the picture. So I just got the stats, over $40,000 of personal property damage done. So thank God no personal injuries though, no deaths. So just looking back at where we are today and where we've come over the past couple of years, there's been a lot of activity. October 2015, residents of the area put together a petition, submitted to council. Council acted very swiftly, and they put in place studies. So the interesting thing is that as we're consulting the borough engineer and the PennDOT manual, The stats, I'm not going to go through all of them, but I think the most interesting ones was that what came from the studies is the PennDOT says that when the 85th percentile is over, it's 10 miles per mile more over the listed speed limit, then speed calming should be implemented. PennDOT also says that the average daily count on a road segment is over 1,000 cars a day, then speed calming should be implemented. Those are ors, not ands. So we satisfied both of those significantly, 5,000 cars a day on average. And then I think the percentile when we first tested was 38, then it went down 33 and then 30. The other interesting point that's not necessarily addressed in any of the studies was the fact that this is the largest uninterrupted road segment in all Swarthmore. I don't think anybody's ever really talked about that, but it is the longest. It's not, it's the second longest, but I've looked at it and looked at the research, and it's about 2,200 feet. Not only that, what makes it worse, it's not only the longest, but it's also the straightest. It's also the widest. So we obviously have a problem. We all recognize the problem. So I'm glad that we're actually putting this into place here. So from October 2015, all the activity took place. October 2018 was when we should have these speed humps implemented. So looking back at the process, I think what concerns us is the design and what's happening here. We knew that this was controversial. Swarthmore hasn't had speed humps before. They also never had a traffic circle. So now that we're having the speed humps in place, one thing that was considered was the fire department and emergency vehicles. It seems like the solution came to place that there will be these separators in place to allow the emergency vehicles to travel over them. So I think everybody will sleep better at night knowing that, myself included. And then we all started looking through the PennDOT. A lot of us neighbors started looking through it. And what's interesting is that they recommend this kind of this longer process where there's a committee that takes all the residents into place called the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Committee. There's a local traffic advisory committee. I mean, there's enough committees here that I don't think these are necessary. But when these decisions were decided, Chapter 4 says that, and I quote, the engineer should describe which traffic calming measures are best able to address the problems identified and discuss neighborhood opinions about traffic calming. Through this and subsequent meetings, the local government, the Neighborhood Traffic Calming Committee, the local Traffic Advisory Committee, which shall include borough engineer, borough representatives and administrators, public works and emergency vehicle representatives, work towards a consensus for the most appropriate traffic calming measures, their design and specific locations, end quote. Now that there's a recommendation, but that did not happen. What did happen was there was someone, what we've learned as we went on was that we went off the Borough Council's engineers approved plan, which you think of a ruler, 12-inch ruler, there will be a bump at 8 inches and a bump at 10 inches. So there's a long runway where there's no bump whatsoever. So I'm looking at my car here. This would maybe not have been prevented by any speed bumps. Maybe it would have, maybe not. But the problem is that where it's located, there's a significant runway up the 8-inch mark, where cars can pick up a significant amount of steam, driving eastbound, and can endanger lives, cause $40,000 worth of property damage, or cause death. Now, I think what we want more than anything else is perception of safety and feel safe with our children here. So, I think I'm not really going to get into any more details than those. There's a lot more data out there about how far the speed hump should be placed, and I think that what's important is traffic calming. I'm not necessarily a speed hump or speed cushion proponent in general. I think that what's interesting is that what's very important here, and this is the kind of reason why I'm addressing this, is that if you recall, the Borough Engineers report had a phase-in approach. And what I'm concerned about is that because there was some controversy here, and a lot of neighbors are concerned about this, is that this might be a phase-out. And so what that means is that if we're setting this up, not setting it to fail, but if the design may not actually have the effect that we all want it to have, which is to calm traffic on that road, is that if we look back and say, these were a gigantic mistake, let's get them out. The question won't be brought up is that where they designed it, was the process not fully thought through? Was the location and design of them not effective enough to get it done? So the phase-in brings in the fact that next steps are phase 2 is the pumps, phase 3 I think is bump outs, and phase 4 is enhanced pavement markings. So I want to make sure that we look forward to be able to address these as we go forward. So I'm not going to address too much of the shoulder. We will talk about the shoulder tomorrow, but overall there's a concern that cars will swerve around. into a 9.5-foot wide shoulder that we have on the out. My sedan is 6.5 feet wide, so it's a lot of room for a car to pass through. So I'm looking forward to learning about that tomorrow. And I know that, like you said, Jane, there won't be my input won't be influencing any sort of decisions that the Borough Council has made without any sort of NDCC or LTAC as PennDOT recommends. But I want to suggest, and I said this before and in this forum, that I don't necessarily expect to have an answer today. But I want to make sure, and the neighbors want to make sure, that the phase-in approach, that the Borough Council and the government can be nimble enough and flexible enough to actually go from phase 2, which we're addressing now, to phase 3 or 4, and actually solve the problem at hand here. So keep that in mind as I'm coming here as a contributing member of the community, a father, a dad, a taxpayer, and everything there. I'm not here to fight against the fire department or the police department about how their emergency vehicles travel. There should be no animus on this. I think we're moving forward in the right direction, but I want to make sure that we don't lose eye on the prize here and push anything down the line from getting something done from if we see a problem in November, December, or January next year, after these are installed, that we don't wait another 3 years for phase 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else care to address council on that subject or any other subject? If not, I'm calling the public comment section of this session to a close. And now it's time for my report. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes of the July 9th meeting? Can I have a motion to approve those minutes? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
The minutes are approved. Thank you. Next item that I have on the agenda is a contract extension for E&L disposal. Jane sent this material around this afternoon, so I think you all should have gotten it. Basically, the bottom line is that we have the option to renew our contract with E&L for another year at the same price we've been paying annually. And as you can see from the bid sheet that Jane circulated, it's by a substantial margin the best price. So it would seem to make sense under the circumstances to go ahead and do that. They need to be notified by August 31st. So what I would like to do is to have a vote on whether we should exercise our option to extend the contract with B&L Disposal for another year. So I'm going to ask for a motion.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
I looked at the spreadsheet with the bid, and it took it out, there was an optional year.
This is the optional year.
That's all we're voting on, is that one year?
Yes.
That's my question.
I'm sorry, I should have put the years in there.
That's
Yeah,
okay. Yeah, okay, got it.
It's in the whole spreadsheet.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, because if this was a renewal of more than 1 year, our discussion, like, would this then go to Public Works and then they
Yes.
come and tell us why? And
Yes.
Right,
And after this year, you'll be needing to
We'll have to do
rebid.
that.
Right.
Right, we only can, we get 1 year.
We
That's
just
how
have
it's
this,
been.
we
That's
just
a
have this
one-year
option,
extension.
that's how it was bid.
Yeah.
So then Public Works Committee then would discuss the bids and then bring that information to council, and then we would discuss more. Okay.
Even before that, they would review the bid package and you'd see that and vote on that and comment on
Yeah.
that beforehand. Yeah, it's a pretty long process.
But that's not
Next
necessary
year.
for just a 1 year extension.
No, this,
That's what
Because
we're
it's
voting
an
on.
existing.
the 1 year
Right.
extension is part of the existing contract, which was already.
Okay, so there was always the option to extend
There was
it
always
by a
the
year.
option.
Okay.
This is not something that just
They would never have agreed to do
came
it.
up,
at
yeah,
all.
at
So,
this
yeah.
point,
So cheap.
right. So this is part of the original.
This leaves recycling in place the way it is now.
This leaves recycling, well, we could still change the recycling program, but it doesn't change how much they receive for recycling. So that's, where they bid a contract where they were paying $5 a ton, and now they're paying $65 a ton to dispose of our recycling. So that's why it would not be, if you went out to bid now, anybody bidding would try and recoup some of that cost. We'll definitely be looking at that next year. Yeah. Although I probably, even if that hadn't changed, I mean, really, 99% of the time they do a great job. I would have recommended
Right.
personally, but
Right.
to renew it, even without that.
Any further questions or discussion? Let's have a vote then. All in favor of exercising the borough's option under section D4 of the current contract between the borough and B&L Disposal to renew their services for the collection of trash, recyclables, and yard waste through 2019 at the prices quoted in the original bid sheet, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries. Thank you, Jane. Next, environment.
Yes, first of all, the recycling is going to remain as it currently is right now, single stream, because we've gotten, we're not getting any clear message from a public about what they're charging if we take out paper and cardboard. So we're just going to continue to keep it as is. And we're continuing to encourage people to take their cardboard and paper to the Swarthmore Recycling Center, and the amounts have gone up pretty significantly in the past few months, and so that's great. The second thing I have is the Street Tree Committee does want like $400 for a little exhibit at the Swarthmore Farmers Market in September, and like a sign and some brochures, and I think that we have that in the...
And we have money between the parks budget and the tree budget and so on. There's certainly enough.
Okay.
So it's just sort of a new expenditure.
It's a small, we don't need to vote on it, do we?
It's budgeted, you say?
Well, it's not.
I mean,
I mean,
not
there's we have
specific.
general categories
Yeah.
for trees, street trees, parks.
Well, let's have a motion as to whether council approves that expenditure. Let's just do it.
Okay, sure. So I move that council approve this expenditure of $400 for Street Tree Committee.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it.
Okay,
Motion
great.
carries.
Thank you.
The
All right.
expenditure is approved.
Great. And third, final thing, the Environment Committee is meeting on Wednesday at 7:30, and we're going to discuss the Street Tree Committee's request for a street tree survey, and that's Wednesday at 7:30.
Thank you, Laura.
Just a note to encourage people to bring also aluminum to the recycling center. We take that directly to a recyclable. That's still a very valuable material as long as it's sort of separated. So big green trailer there to put your aluminum in.
I mean, this is, just to be clear about this, so we're encouraging people to do this in addition to the curbside,
Sure.
single stream
You can do
recycling.
both, yeah.
You can do both or one or the other,
Or you can leave the aluminum out of your curbside and take it in as well.
Okay.
But the benefit of bringing it to the recycling center is then we get, the borough gets more back.
Okay. Finance, Michael.
Yes, we'll start with the financial report for July. Hopefully everyone's had a chance to take a look at it. The one thing I would point out, which I've pointed out for the last several months, is that this year, as mentioned previously, we have prepaid our pension costs, half of it as opposed to waiting until September. So that's about $170,000 that was prepaid, I guess, this year into those plans, with the idea of sort of dollar cost averaging into markets, which I think so far has been positive. And the other roughly $80,000 of the $250 that's higher in expenditure than expected, and is the two officers going in for drops. So when you factor those two things in, the expenditures, while they look like they're running way ahead of plan, are pretty close to expectations. They're slightly higher, but nothing out of the ordinary in terms of what we normally look at. So just wanted to point that out again. I'll just keep saying the same thing every month. But eventually, I guess by October, I won't say this anymore, so I apologize. And finally, as it relates to the financial report, the cash balance at the end of July was $1,714,714.53. Are there any questions on that financial report? Okay, I'm going to move on then to wire transactions for the month of July. I'd like to make a motion to approve wire transactions totaling $2,451.52 to Wells Fargo for loan repayments.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries.
And then finally, hopefully everyone's had a chance to look at the open invoices. I'd like to make a motion to approve open invoices for the month totaling $311,438.10.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Any discussion? If not, let's have a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, the motion carries.
And I do think we will be meeting in September.
Yeah.
Is that seem reasonable in terms of how we
We'll have a
the request?
preliminary budget by then.
So, which is, I don't have it in front of me, but I'll send out the information in terms of, it'll be just regular scheduled. I think it's the fourth Monday of September, so.
Did I give you a copy of the Swarthmore College, Swarthmore College, the bond issue that went out? Swarthmore College usually makes a one-time contribution to the borough as a bond issue goes out, and we were fortunate to receive $15,000 this year, so it's unbudgeted funding. And again, that's the process the college uses, the Swarthmore Borough Authority, as opposed to some other bonding authorities, to float their bonds, and the borough is the recipient in terms of some income that comes in, so we certainly want to thank them for that.
Indeed. That's great, thank you. Michael, before we leave finance, do we have any transactions to ratify?
Oh, sorry. I think I did miss that. Yes, we do have a transaction to ratify for the Marino Corporations for the PennDOT enhancement. So I'd like to make a motion to approve that transaction totaling $66,314.35.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The ayes have it, motion carries.
Good catch.
Thanks, Michael. Sarah, general government.
So we met last month, and part of what we did was we approved some permits for the events for the Thursday Night Live street stroll. Yeah, street stroll, which happened last month, and what day did that happen? Was it August? Was it
Last
week? 2 weeks ago?
We can have.
Okay. A week and a half. I was there. It's summer and everything.
It's August, you know. it's all kind
Beer vendors were there, wine
of blends together.
There's about 400 people there. So.
There were tons of people. Everyone seemed to be enjoying themselves. There didn't seem to be a hitch that we heard about. Great music and people wandering around. Great community event. And so they wanted to do it again. And we approved the event permit to say that, as long as nothing came up, it could go on for the rest of the season, but they just had to let us know when the date was and make sure that everything was in place for that. So it will be, there'll be another one on Thursday, September 13th, which is also the last night of Thursday Night Live. So there'll be the music and the stroll again. And I didn't realize, so the truckathon, then we've talked about that permit. That's the 14th, that's the next day.
That's the 14th, right? Yeah.
The very next day. And so that, it's going to be a busy week in Swarthmore. So we approved that permit with the understanding that they're going to work with Public Works on trash, the cleanup situation afterwards. So yes, that will be a busy week. We also heard from the Swarthmore Centennial Foundation about their visioning project and how they're coming up with a task force and about goals for the borough. And as they do more things, they're gonna bring that to us. I have a copy of the slideshow that they presented. I can forward that on to council. I will forward that on to council.
They came to your meeting, they didn't come to council?
Right.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So then we also just talked about, we actually talked about this handbook that I think we got, right?
We did?
So you're gonna mention that.
I will mention it.
You're gonna mention that.
Or I can do it right now, if you want, whatever you
Please
want.
do. That's okay.
So, in your recycled Swarthmore spouse, none of them match, none of them are new. They've all held other papers before. Ross, as I think I mentioned at your meeting, Ross was at a meeting on, I think, open records law, and he was in the middle of the meeting, like literally at lunchtime, he texted me and said, we're supposed to have a policy, we're supposed to have an open records officer, and I'm like, we do, but there's no way that you would know that, because it's not, I mean, that information is actually online. But there are some other policies that the borough has that you might not be aware of. So this is sort of a borough policy book, although it starts with a publication put out by the Department of Community and Economic Development, DCED, Center for Local Government Services, a Borough Council Handbook. But there are some policies in here, including the new general government policy on social media, a policy we have on young ones at play about where you can smoke in front of borough buildings, or mostly not smoke. A policy that was done several years ago on religious displays in front of Borough Hall. The borough's investment policy is in here for the pension plans and our general funding. Open Records Act, as well as a copy of the act. A policy we have on volunteer fire company when they are covered for activities. People may not know the volunteer fire company does a lot of things outside of the answering calls, and the workers' comp carrier prefers that you have an agreement of what is covered and what is not. And we have shared that with the fire company in the past. There's a copy of the Employee Ethic Act in here, as well as some Q&A, and a copy of the Open Meetings Sunshine Act. Probably some other things that come along, but I hope you enjoy it.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Are all of these things on the borough's website?
No, not all of them are. Some of them are pretty internal documents. An example of one of those, the Borough Council Handbook would be the drug and alcohol testing for CDL drivers is an internal. So some of them are very internal policies, so no.
Okay.
But maybe some could be on that are not. I'm not sure, for instance, that, like we probably wouldn't put our investment policies on, although we could. We have a page of all of our financial statements are all on. The young ones at play might be interesting. So it's easy enough to do.
Thank you. Thank you for putting that together. It's very nice. Thank you.
Great.
Yep.
Great.
It's very helpful. So we are going to be meeting next month, September 17th, usual third Monday, 7:30 here. That's it.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Planning and zoning. Betsy isn't here this evening. Is there anything, and another member of the committee that wants to raise anything? If not, we'll just wait till next month.
She asked me to raise something in executive session this evening.
Very good. Thank you.
And I did circulate the one ordinance that you'll be discussing and asking for authorization to advertise.
Right. This is the
Family.
The dwelling.
Caregiver.
Definition,
Caregiver.
family caregiver
Right.
suite
Right.
issue. Yes.
Right, so the planning commission hashed that through quite a bit.
Okay.
And then she is making sure, I think a couple more discussions with Christopher and the chair to make sure that it's sort of what they thought it would look like in the end. And I think the committee reviewed it, right?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there's been no.
No action item.
No action item on this,
No,
right?
she wanted to wait it until she.
Yeah, until she got back. Okay, great.
And are we meeting in August?
No.
Meeting and zoning? No.
She's away.
Okay, so no meeting for planning and zoning in August.
Great. Mary, public safety.
Thank you. So Public Safety Committee did meet on July 17th. We did not meet in August. Back in July, we discussed the speed tables on Yale Avenue and the pending installation, and we talked a bit about the installation. I'm going to call them plastic pylons. That's probably not the correct name, but something to keep people from going around the edges of the speed tables. So we did talk about that. And we also discussed a request from a resident for more police presence up at the crosswalk at Henderson and Swarthmore Avenue, because there were people trying to go to the swim club who were having a hard time crossing the street. So we talked about that. And Sergeant Thomas was here that night for the meeting and said that they would put somebody up there the next day. And I think we talked with Jane a bit about maybe having the paint refreshed on some of the crosswalks, or that crosswalk if need be, if we looked at it and thought that it looked faded. But I think maybe I heard later that it looked fine the way it was.
It's actually thermoplastic resin.
So it's
about
the
as good as you
shiny
can get.
plastic stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
for better or worse, yeah.
All right, and that's it for public safety. We will meet on September 18th at 7:30 PM here in this room.
But not this, you know.
Not in August. No, we are not.
Can I ask a question?
Of
So
course.
I already forgot what you call the plastic.
I call them pylons, but I think they have a much
They're tubes.
highly tech, well,
Interesting.
highly
That's
technical
right.
name. to
Delineators.
Delineators, yeah.
Okay, so that might have been part of the plan, but that was before I came on. So there is going to be something put
Well,
between the speed bump and the curb?
Yes, to keep people from driving around the speed bump,
Right.
because as the resident who came said,
Right.
there's a wide space between, I
And
guess.
something to bike through there without cars, like the idea.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So there is something, there's a
Yeah.
plan for something.
It's being talked about. I don't
Discussion.
know that we didn't vote on anything like that, though, and I don't know that we have to take an additional vote on looking at you, because I'm not sure.
No, I mean, that was going to be my question, whether you guys voted on it or making a recommendation to council. I mean, my feeling is, to me, those tubes, or whatever they're called, and there is a name for them, I think that, to me, that they're kind of adjunct to the speed cushions themselves. In other words, in my mind, and I think probably in the engineer's mind, you know, they sort of go together under the right circumstances, and it seems like these might be the right circumstances. So I think we can leave it up to the borough engineer and to the borough public works guys to figure out, you know, how best to do that. But I think we should do it. I don't think we need to vote on it. I think council, you know, that would be the sense of what we voted on before.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, you've authorized the project, now let the engineers make it the best project that they can make.
Yeah, yeah.
Did I answer your question?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right, that's it for public safety.
Thank you, Mary. Public Works, Parks and Recreation, Ross isn't here. Is there anyone else on the committee who would like to address council?
Is his ordinance being presented tonight in some way for advertisement?
No,
or it's waiting?
it was advertised,
It's
but it's for
advertised.
next month.
Got it.
Jane, but looking at the ordinance, I have a couple of questions. I mean, I think this is one, as we had a question during public comment period, whether this is something we sort of have to adopt, you know, verbatim. I found a couple of little, they're really kind of typos, you know, in the ordinance, which actually I think are in the model that we got.
Well, we're
Can we
pretty far
change things?
afield,
Can we change things
we're
like
pretty
that?
far afield from the model. Ours is quite
Okay.
different, so, no, they can be corrected.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't, we don't need to
No,
talk
no,
about
no,
it.
you're
I'll just-
totally, yeah, we have, ours is a much pared down ordinance
Right.
from some of the models, so that's not a problem.
Right.
I thought that one of the questions that he mentioned tonight,
Yes.
there was an addition, and I think it's in the most recent one, that was a crack had to be,
Related to
yeah,
a problem.
to a
It
problem,
can't-
not
yes.
just a crack, because that was a
Yes.
concern of Betsy's that got resolved.
It's, that's right. It's cracks, fractures, et cetera, right, that are likely to contribute non-sewage water or sediment into the sewage collection
Right.
system, or any other reservoir inflow or infiltration. So it's cracks, fractures, holes, deformities, et cetera, that are likely to do that.
And then what is the next line? I don't have one in front of me about the tree.
25% or greater of the lateral cross-sectional area is blocked by debris. Could be mud.
Yeah.
By debris, including tree roots.
Right, but I don't think that means that you have to do a repair. It doesn't just mean that you have to clean it. So I think that was probably a misreading of the ordinance, because he's actually exactly right. When you see that much stuff in the line, there's a problem. So I think the idea is you get that out of there, but you still got to fix it, not assuming that getting it out of there one of my early acts as a manager was clearing a borough line of tree roots, which immediately caused a huge disastrous leak into Crum Creek because the line fell apart. It was being held together with
By the tree roots.
So yes, he is absolutely correct that just getting rid of the tree roots would be a terrible idea. So maybe Ross and I can look at that language.
Yeah, because I mean, again, I'm not a plumber either, but I think the way maybe some of the older laterals, the way they're joined, made from, I don't know whether they're cast iron or even, I think could even be terracotta. So I think tree roots can actually get in between.
Oh, they're all over.
No, what I mean is without there being a crack.
Oh.
I think tree roots can work their way through the joint actually, without there necessarily being a crack.
Right.
I mean, these are those very fine hair-like
Roots.
roots.
Yeah.
You know,
Lovely call,
so it may be that this isn't as redundant or as unnecessary as it sounds.
No, I think it's a good clause, because it's saying if there's that much in there, then that joint's probably separated, which would mean it's not good.
Okay, all right, we're not
But
taking.
any other little comments, I now have the working copy on
You do?
my computer,
Okay.
so you can give them to me.
Okay,
I have one thing that actually Ross didn't know about. I received a letter just last week from, there's a copy from our engineer. Our pavers have pushed us back, and I will let the Yale Avenue people know this tomorrow. They were supposed to start by the end of this month, not in Swarthmore, but in one of the other communities that we're sharing the program with. And they pushed their start date back to September 17th, and they will not be completed until October 5th. The contract says they have to be done by October 10th, and the engineer said he's going to tighten that up next year. But for now, we're stuck. They're still within the confines of their contract.
okay, well, thanks for that.
Thanks for nothing.
No, I know. It's Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, David. It's August. But band camp starts, I think, on Monday, isn't it? So the more people are coming back into town, and it's good. Even with our lack of people, the Thursday night stroll, I think, was a great success. I mean, it was estimates of around 400 people there, kind of thing, and it went on for the entire evening. Beautiful weather. It was really nice. I think there's another Thursday Night Live this week, and then, of course, the 13th we'll have the extra stroll as the last one of the season. That one, of course, will involve eucalyptus. I just wanted to add my 2 cents in about the recycling. In particular, cardboard. If you have stacks of cardboard, I really encourage you to bring it to the recycling center, put it in the dumpster that's there, as well as the aluminum stuff. I think that a lot of what we're seeing is that the single stream was kind of one of those things that was a little bit too good to be true kind of thing. We're starting to find out more and more about where the plastics actually have been going, and there's some question about how much of them wound up in the ocean anyway, and everything else. So not good stuff. So we're just encouraging everybody to use less plastic if you can. You know, it's always possible to buy in bulk at the co-op and avoid that. Glass, even though apparently there's not a market for it, it's still something that actually breaks down and returns to sand in the landfill. So at least that's something. So that's pretty much it. All I have, other than it's going to be September before we know it. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Jane.
Just a couple things on the manager's report. One is, as Lauren said, you can see the paper at the recycling center is up. Last year, for the month of July, there were 7.8 tons. This year, there were more than 3 tons greater than that. So that's nice to see. I'm sure we'll see those numbers increase throughout the year. Also on here, just people keep mentioning these upcoming town events. The only reason that stroll is not on here is because it came in really late last week, like Thursday, something like that. And there are a couple more events in town that have been previously approved. Community Arts Center, there's an article about that in the Swarthmore this week. as well as the Swarthmore Makers Market, which is when they have all the stuff going on at the same time. Same group puts it together as the farmers market. I gave everybody a copy of the budget schedule. You've all been, we haven't all been through it before. I've never put on there, but it appears that there are some of our community, not organizations, they've all gotten a letter that you've got a copy of, and they'll be telling us what their requests are for the year. But also, the Planning Commission may speak to, may have something that they want. Certainly the EAC and the Tree Committee will be going to the Environment Committee. So if you feel like you have a more like a borough organization, it's like a borough government organization that is looking for something, be sure to let me know or let Michael know, and we'll start to work that into the budget process. Were there any questions on the budget schedule? The new microphones, Betsy sort of said after a meeting, oh my gosh, is driving her crazy with these microphones. So Dave worked with Bill Hayward, who's a borough resident, and got us what we think is a really good deal. We hope that these are working out. Dave seems to be happy with them. And our problem was just the way this was wired, and people are in this room all the time. It was just, I don't think it was malicious. People were just constantly kicking the wire. So all this can be put away in a neat little carrying case that we got with it, and hopefully it will solve our problems. There are 8 of them, but I think we didn't get enough stands, so we'll have that. As long as we decide to go ahead, they have a 45-day money-back guarantee, so we are making sure that we like them before we finish out the purchase. So thanks to Betsy for the idea, and to Dave and Bill for working with us on that. And the last thing I have is, as many as you know, these Borough Hall windows were probably installed incorrectly now 20 plus years ago. And we have been trying to get people to give us quotes on replacing them. They're kind of weird windows, they're not stock, they're casements. So we finally got, and one of the persons we asked is sitting right here, so I hope he doesn't disagree with me. They were just a pain I think to source and stuff. He's shaking his head because we always like to go local. So one of our, this was actually Cuzzy's idea, one of our guys, he was out chatting with him and asked him if he'd like to bid on it. It's a little company, well, they're not that little, I guess, Bodeco. And so Joel from Bodeco did some research and came up with a cost to replace all the windows, which of course would have to be bid. We understand that. But we wanted to do a test run under the bid limit. So it's not like we have to go out to advertise them, but just in the interest of transparency, this is kind of an unusual thing for us to have done, is to give somebody a contract to put in 3 windows. So, and he knows that if they work out, then it will probably then go to a sealed bid to do more, and he might not get it after all of his work, which is fine. But so in the interest just of transparency and openness, I just wanted to let people know that I'd like to go ahead and let Bodeco give a trial run of these windows to make sure that we like them before we go forward.
Yeah. So I'd like to call for a motion to approve this expenditure, and I believe, Jane, the amount we're talking about it's under 10,900, right?
Correct. It's
10,500 more or less.
It's $10,343.
$343. All right. So I think council ought to vote on this. Again, just to be clear, this is for 3 windows.
Right, well, 3 sounds like about 1 big one like that,
Right.
and then 2 of the small windows down in the police station.
Right.
Not all the windows are terrible. Probably about a third of them are really bad.
Okay.
And then a third are fine, and a third are in between. They did kind of laugh at me when I went down and said which windows are bad, and they were like, ha ha ha, they're all terrible. But we picked 2 that would be the worst.
All right.
Just my theory on, when there are, if you have a budget item for those things, you don't have to have council approve every expenditure. But whenever you're hiring a new vendor, I think it's good practice that the council approve that selection of a person.
And that way too, if any of you had a conflict, you knew them, you'd work with them, if they were a brother-in-law, you could recuse yourself from the vote.
Right. All right, so I'm going to ask for a motion to approve that expenditure. Someone care to do that?
To make a motion?
Yeah.
Yes, I make a motion that we approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any more discussion or questions about this?
I just have a quick
Sure,
question, because
yeah.
I was not, I think I've heard you mention at some point there's something wrong with the windows, but what is it that's wrong with them?
So the outside part has rotted away, so the window itself is not bad, but well, that's not really true. So they're aluminum clad wood windows and the wood has rotted, so they don't close.
Is that why it's cold in here in the winter?
Mhm.
Okay. Definitely replace it.
I know, I was gonna say, have somebody over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was probably, well, Rick's looked at them, he can let you know. He's one of the ones who looked at them, and, yeah. It was, I mean, we did notice it, but not in time to call in any kind of warranty.
That was gonna be my next question.
We tried.
I was gonna play the part of Ross and ask about the warranty.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you?
No.
No? Okay. Any more discussion or questions? If not, all in favor of approving this expenditure of $10,343? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. The expenditure is approved.
Thank you.
Anything
I'm
else?
sorry, I don't have anything else.
Nothing else? Thanks, Jim. Okay.
Thank you, I don't have anything this evening.
Thanks, Bob. Any other business before we adjourn into executive session? We're going to be adjourning into executive session to discuss a personnel matter as well as some pending litigation. If there is no other business, then can I have a motion to adjourn and to reconvene in executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.